Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. So I'm back for another Roscoe's recap, and this viewing party was for season 17 episode 10. And the guests this week were Lydia B. Collins, Candy Muse and Plain Jane. Today we're going to be talking about the real reason why Jules Sparkles did not call out Arrietty for stealing her jokes, the backlash against this week's guest judge Whitney Cummings, and Lydia reveals whether she and Kori King snuck into each other's hotel rooms during filming. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. So they started off with host Naysha Lopez asking if Candy and Plain Jane are watching this season. Candy paused and said yes in a high-pitched voice, presumably meaning it was sarcastic, and everyone laughed. Candy then clarified that she watches clips of it on TikTok, which are the important parts. Candy then asked if Suzie Toot is really that funny, because a lot of the other queens in this episode said that they were afraid of going after her in the roast. Lydia said Suzie is funny in real life as well as on the show, and the other host Caramel said that Suzie won both the reading challenge and RDR live, so she is funny. Plain Jane then joked that Suzie is funny, but she's quote funny looking. She then said Suzie's forehead is giving Dooney's from SNL, which is a character from SNL played by Kristen Wiig who has a large forehead and small hands, and everyone laughed. Naysha then asked if Plain has been keeping up with season 17, and Plain said yes, but also that it's going to be harder now that her sister Kori King has gone. But her and Candy both joked that they only watched this week's episode because they were guest stars for the villains roast. Naysha then asked Plain to look into the camera and tell her sister Kori King exactly how she feels about her run on Drag Race. Plain said she'd already spoken to Kori about this, but quote, "You're a disappointment, you're a disgrace, not just to me but all of Boston, and I hope you've learned from your grave mistakes." Lydia then said, quote, "Didn't she wear your clothes the entire season?" And people in the audience gasped and laughed. Naysha then asked Lydia to look into the camera and tell Kori how she felt about her run on Drag Race 2. Lydia joked that it was, quote, flawless, and that Kori could do no wrong. Naysha also asked Candy to do the same thing, but Candy looked confused and asked Lydia whether Kori was her actual real boyfriend, and everyone laughed because Candy clearly had no idea that Lydia and Kori are genuinely together. Lydia confirmed that she and Kori are in a relationship, and Candy said she thought maybe it was just a thing for the show, a bit like Brooklyn and Vanjie. But Candy joked that Kori got a twink and a relationship out of the show, which is the real prize, but she said that Kori did, quote, worse than Jujubee. And then Plain said not only that, Kori did worse than Jujubee on that singing show Queen of the Universe, which was eventually cancelled, and everyone laughed. They moved on and they talked about the fact that Candy, Plain and Mistress Isabel Brooks were the guests this week for the villains roast, and Naysha asked whether they were quick to accept the invitation when they got the call to be guest stars. Candy joked that they didn't so much ask her, they told her that she was coming on a certain day and certain time. And Candy said she was actually filming the pit stop, House of Villains, as well as a few other things at the time, and it was Pride season in June when they filmed this, so it was a very busy time. But she said she'll be there because she never says no to being on TV. Plain joked that she was more so confused why they asked her to be on a villain's roast, because Plain said that she is not a villain, she was, quote, a hero on her season. Plain then said that Dawn from her season was more so a villain, and so she should have been asked, but then she said, quote, Dawn isn't as interesting, so that's probably why they asked Plain instead, and everyone laughed. They moved on and talked about the guest judge for this week, Whitney Cummings, who is a comedian and is well known for being on the celebrity roasts that they do on Comedy Central. They brought up the moment when Whitney shaded Lydia slightly during the table read when Lydia yawned, and they asked Lydia how that felt. Lydia said that Whitney was a, quote, B word, but she was a funny B word, but it was, quote, very intimidating because she has a very stoic face, and it was, quote, scary. Also, just as some extra tea that happened outside of Roscoe's, I saw on social media that when the preview for this week's episode came out and people saw that Whitney Cummings was going to be the guest judge, there was some backlash against this because of some of the things that Whitney has said. So people had started posting links to an article in out.com as well as a few other publications which had reported on this back in January 2025. This was during the time that there were large destructive fires in Los Angeles and a lot of people lost their homes, had to be evacuated, and at least 29 people died. During this time, Whitney posted a video on social media, which has since been deleted, where she seemingly spread a conspiracy theory about lesbian firefighters. Whitney was talking about Kristen Cowley, who is the first openly LGBT+ fire chief in LA. When Kristen got appointed, it got a lot of criticism with people saying that she was a quote DEI hire, which stands for diversity, equity and inclusion. And a DEI hire usually implies that the person only got the role because they fulfill a quota of a certain underrepresented group, rather than because they have the relevant experience. So in other words, people were implying that Kristen only got the job because she's a lesbian rather than because she is actually qualified, despite the fact that Kristen has decades of experience. But back to Whitney, when talking about Kristen, the new fire chief, Whitney said that, quote, lesbians can be firefighters and that she's not, quote, thinking about your genitals or your preferences when it comes to emergency responders. However, Whitney then implied that the gay women who run the LA Fire Department are, quote, recruiting more lesbians to work there and, quote, isn't that essentially just recruiting people in your dating pool to work at your office? I don't recall voting on a prop that said we could recruit our fire team off Grindr. She then likened that to a straight man wanting to hire, quote, more hot blondes to work in their workplace. Whitney then got a huge amount of backlash for these comments, with people saying that she was spreading a wild conspiracy theory, implying that the lesbian fire chief in LA was only hiring other lesbians so she could date them. People also referenced a tweet Whitney had posted back in early January 2025, where she was referencing a comedy set that she did on the CNN New Year's broadcast when she was roasting 2024. And Whitney said, quote, another 2024 CNN joke I cut for time, Shania Twain's on the show tonight, reminds me of this year's Paris Olympic theme, Man, I Feel Like a Woman. This was presumably referring to Imani Khalif, who is an Algerian boxer who won gold at the Paris Olympics, but misinformation about her circulated online that falsely claimed that she was trans and that she had been born a man, even though this was proven to be false later on. And Imani received a lot of hate and death threats because of this false information. There's also ongoing legal action to do with this, which is quite complicated, so I won't explain it all here, but I'll put links to the articles in the description if you want to read more. However, because Whitney Cummings had previously made these comments about the lesbian firefighter conspiracy theory, as well as these jokes about Imani Khalif, which people said were making fun of transphobia, a lot of Drag Race fans said that Whitney should not have been a guest judge on the show. Other people pointed out, though, that Whitney made these controversial comments in 2025, whereas her appearance on the show would have been filmed months before that, so Drag Race probably would not have known that she was going to say those things. But a lot of people were angry that Whitney was a guest judge this week, so I just thought this was some interesting tea, which is why I included it in this video. Anyway, back to Roscoe's, and they talked about the roast, and Caramel brought up that Arrietty had stolen some jokes from Jules Sparkles, and Caramel asked Lydia whether anyone noticed Arrietty stealing these jokes. Lydia said, quote, no, I don't think anyone cared to look at what Arrietty was doing, and everyone laughed. Also, I did see some tea about this outside of Roscoe's to do with why Jules did not call out Arrietty for stealing her jokes. Suzie Toot recently did an interview with Joey Nolfi of Entertainment Weekly, where Joey asked Suzie if she knew why Jules didn't call Arrietty out. Suzie said, quote, she didn't tell anyone in the moment. It wasn't until a van ride that night until she told me what happened. Here's the thing, Jules said, I'm going to hold this in. I'm not going to say it unless Arrietty says it, because if she goes home tonight, I don't want this to be part of her narrative. But Arrietty did bring it up to the group later during Untucked, so Jules talked about it in a confessional which they showed during the roast. Jules later reposted the link for this interview that Suzie did with Entertainment Weekly, and Jules said, for anyone wondering. So Jules was presumably confirming that that was the reason why she did not call Arrietty out for stealing the jokes. I also saw that Jules defended Arrietty in a recent Instagram story that she posted where she said this.
This should go without saying, but if you are sending hate to the girls, you are weird and lame. Death threats over some jokes that were bad to begin with is crazy, okay? Low-key, she did me a favor, because those jokes were terrible, okay? So, yeah, y'all need to relax.
Another aspect of Suzie's interview that I thought was interesting was that Suzie said the fight between Arrietty and Jules in this episode was, quote, one of the fights that affected the real relationships of the girls because it left things, quote, unresolved for weeks. Arrietty also did an interview with Joey from Entertainment Weekly where she was asked about stealing the jokes, and Arrietty said, quote, this B word already peed me off. I'm already not feeling good, let's have some fun. I love balance in my life. If someone gets me, I have to get them back. I'm gunning to get them back. Arrietty also went into more detail about why she felt so, quote, backstabbed by Jules, and she confirmed that she and Jules are okay now, but they're not as close as they appeared on the show. And the full interviews with Suzie and Arrietty were really interesting, so make sure you go and check out the full versions on Entertainment Weekly, and I'll put links to them in the description. But back to Roscoe's, and they watched more of the episode, including the drama that happened between the queens. Candy said that watching this back, it's funny because when they filmed this, Candy had turned to Plain and Mistress and said, quote, these girls look like they hate each other because there was so much tension on the stage between the queens. And Candy and the others did not know why because they didn't know about any of the previous drama that had happened earlier in the episode, but now they're seeing all of the background behind it. Lydia said all the tension was definitely real and was not edited, and it was, quote, even worse than that because it happened in real time. Lydia also said the tension lasted the entire time that the queens were getting ready in the workroom. Plain said she also felt that there was a, quote, weird energy among the girls, but she just thought that they were maybe nervous or something. Plain then said that watching this drama unfold, she's just, quote, rolling my eyes, and yes, the drama is good, but she can't relate to it because it's a roast, it's not hard to get up on the stage and say crap about other queens. Candy then said that the girls were mad about Jules and the running order, but all of the queens are, quote, broke F-slurs, who have no money and are used to working in bars for $50 to then competing on Drag Race for $200,000. Then Candy said, quote, you don't think I'm going to sabotage the next B word? Absolutely. Which is exactly why Candy said she would have sent Jimbo home on All Stars 8 because she was competition, and the queens just need to get over it. Naysha then said that in the dressing room, queens roast each other all the time and it's their love language. They then moved on, and there was a question for Plain Jane about how she helped Kori prepare for Drag Race. Plain said that Kori doesn't ask for help and she hates listening, and if she thinks something is fierce, she'll just do it regardless. They also asked Candy if she helped her drag sisters prepare for Drag Race, which includes Aja and Dahlia Sin. Candy said that she actually sewed the Statue of Liberty outfit that Aja wore on season 9, and she also helped Dahlia prepare for season 12 as well. They watched more of this week's episode and the drama between Arrietty and Jules, and Naysha asked Lydia about this. Lydia said it would have been worse if the jokes were, quote, smash bangers, but implied that they were not. Then, apparently, while they were getting ready, Lydia asked Arrietty if she was really going to steal the jokes from Jules, and Arrietty showed Lydia her notebook and said, quote, yeah, they're written down right here, baby. Plain then said, quote, the B-word stole jokes and the set was still trash. If I was Jules, I would have been double effing peed, and everyone laughed. Candy said Arrietty's set really was that awful and it was not just the editing. Candy then said, quote, I had never seen a roast be so bad in person. Caramel then asked if it was worse than Utica's roast on season 13, and Candy said that at least with Utica, RuPaul flipped her off and that was funny, but, quote, no one in the room was laughing at Arrietty. Candy also shared that as soon as the roast finished, she, Plain and Mistress had to leave the set, so they didn't see any of the rest of the episode, so they were experiencing it all for the first time watching it now. They then watched the moment that Lydia won the challenge this week, and everyone clapped and cheered for Lydia. Lydia said she, quote, blacked out and hardly remembers anything from this episode because it was so, quote, stressful and alarming, because she thought that she was going to go home this week after she had previously done so badly in the other comedy challenge. The other host, Batty Davis, asked Lydia what material for the roast she had pre-written before she went to the show, and what did she come up with on the spot. Lydia revealed that she did not think that she was going to make it that far in the competition, so she had not pre-written anything, and she also did not have a ghostwriter or anything like that. Caramel then said that Arrietty, Jules and Lexi didn't do a great job. Candy agreed and said that when they left the set, she turned to Plain and Mistress and said, quote, baby, they will have a hard time editing this episode. They then talked about Sam Starr's roast and how it was so short compared to the others, and asked Lydia if Sam's really was that short or was it edited down. Lydia said that she couldn't remember, but then she said, quote, maybe she just wasn't that funny that they had to cut some of the stuff out, I don't know. But apparently each queen got a 3 to 5 minute set. Naysha then said, quote, but you know how it is, it's like we need things to fit the narrative. Some people in the audience gasped, but Naysha said that that wasn't shady. They then went through the runways for this week, and Lydia explained that her outfit was not her first choice. The original outfit that she was going to wear, quote, showed every ounce of my skin, but Lydia felt that it would be too revealing if she had to lip sync, so the night before the roast, Lydia pulled this outfit out of the bottom of her suitcase and said she was going to do something with it, and she thinks that it worked out. There was then a question asking if Plain or Candy would ever go back for All Stars. Candy said she would not go back as a contestant after experiencing being a guest star because they were treated so well, they all had their own trailers, and they also got gift bags of Anastasia Beverly Hills, and they also got paid to be there. Candy then said, quote, I think I'm done with my time on Drag Race. However, Candy added that every time a new promo comes out, she thinks, quote, I want just one more promo. Candy then said she'd love to see all of the, quote, nasty girls on a season together, such as Plain Jane, Willem, Gia Gunn, and Jeremy Carey, who previously went by Fifi O'Hara. Lydia asked if Plain would go on All Stars with her sister Kori King, and Plain said yes, but she said that she doesn't think Kori is an All Star. Plain then joked and said, quote, nowadays it's like anything goes. I mean, they had Naysha, and everyone laughed. They then moved on, and Candy said to Lydia that she hopes that she doesn't win the season because, quote, losers have so much more successful careers than winners do after the show. Naysha then said, quote, you have 4 people that have lost the show sitting right across from you, and she pointed at all of the people on stage, including Lydia. But Naysha later clarified that what she meant was that Lydia has not won the show yet because she's still competing, and what she said was not a spoiler. But some people in the comments on the Roscoe's video wondered whether Naysha may have accidentally given away a spoiler that Lydia does not win season 17. They then watched Untucked when Anya was defending Jules, and Batty thought it was interesting that Anya and Jules had previously had issues because of Trimgate earlier in the season, but now Anya was standing up for Jules. Lydia said that Anya had said something to her at the beginning of the season that was very insightful, which was, quote, I could punch you in the face one day, but the next morning I'll pat you on the ass and say good morning, sister. And so this is a good example of that. They moved on to the Q&A section, and one of the questions was whether Lydia regretted production finding out about her relationship with Kori. Lydia said that it was, quote, inevitable and there was no hiding it. Plain said it was Kori's entire storyline, so she doesn't regret it. Naysha asked if it annoys Lydia that she always gets asked about Kori, but Lydia said no because she's, quote, obsessed with Kori and there's a reason why they're together. Candy then said that Lydia, quote, loves talking about her man and said that other people also love talking about their partners. Cara then asked who made the first move between Lydia and Kori. Lydia said Kori claims it was Lydia and that it was some kind of quote grand scheme, but it wasn't because Lydia was focusing on the competition. But Lydia joked that she thought Kori was a pit crew member who snuck behind the scenes, but she clarified that it was actually Kori who made the first move. Candy asked how Kori made the move on Lydia and how it happened. Lydia explained that there's not a lot of time on Drag Race to do anything. All you do is sleep, work on your looks, and you're allowed to go on a walk once. But they didn't have any time to bond, so all of her and Kori's bonding time was done in the workroom, and there were little moments of Kori putting her arm around Lydia and things like that. So Lydia said, quote, "I guess I'll indulge." Plain asked if Kori ever snuck into Lydia's hotel room during the night, but Lydia said no, and their rooms were on different floors of the hotel. But apparently when Kori got eliminated, she gave one of the PAs her sweatshirt and asked them to give it to Lydia, and because it smelled like Kori, Lydia slept with it at night. Naysha also said that on Drag Race, they tape the doors shut so that if you try and leave your room, the tape comes off and they'll know that you left your room. But Lydia said they have, quote, upped the ante now because the doors are actually dead-bolted shut. Candy said that they only put tape on the doors for regular seasons of Drag Race, not All Stars. Naysha said they did do it on All Stars 8, but Candy was just doing her own thing, and on All Stars 8, Candy had the internet when no one else did, and Candy was, quote, doing the most. Naysha then asked Lydia if the doors had not been locked, would she have gone to Kori's hotel room? Lydia said she's a, quote, stickler for the rules, but she wouldn't have said no if Kori had knocked on her door. Naysha then said in last week's episode, when the queens were assigning the categories for the design challenge outfits, they got to nominate which queen would go next, and she asked why Lydia did not choose Kori. Lydia said that Lexi Love was her, quote, good sister, and offered Lydia a joint after the show, so when Lydia had the opportunity to choose the next queen, she panicked and just chose Lexi because she knew Lexi would have her back after the show, but she wasn't even thinking about Kori. Lydia then said, quote, "I'm stupid, I don't know," and people laughed. Naysha also asked if the kiss between Lydia and Kori in last week's lip sync was planned, and Lydia said no, and in fact, Lydia was trying to reject the idea that the two of them might be in the bottom together, and so they didn't talk about it or plan it in advance, it just happened. But the song is called Kiss Me Deadly, so even if Anya was in the bottom, she probably would have ended up making out with Kori too. And finally, someone asked the queens if they would ever kai-kai with another Drag Race queen, and Candy revealed that she has previously hooked up with two queens from the show. Someone joked that one of them was Utica because Utica was in the audience at Roscoe's, and Candy said no, but then she said, quote, "Utica has a big ass D," and explained that Utica on season 13 walked around naked all the time in the workroom, and everyone screamed and laughed. Candy said she can't say who the queens were that she hooked up with, but one time she was at a pool with a go-go dancer and a popular Drag Race queen, and that queen was, quote, eating his ass and stuff like that. The audience shouted out asking who it was. Candy said she couldn't say, and Naysha told her to whisper it to her, and Naysha laughed when Candy told her who it was, but then Candy said, quote, "Okay, it was Valentina," and everyone laughed. Then Candy said the other queen she hooked up with, she really can't say who it was, but they were in London after the DragCon UK weekend, and they were throwing an after party in their hotel room, and Candy was with another Drag Race queen and two other guys, and they had a, quote, fab little foursome. Candy did tell Naysha who it was, but said that she wasn't going to tell anyone else, and joked that if you give her $1 later on, she'll tell you who it was. Naysha also said about herself that she's only ever kai-kai'd with one Drag Race queen, and she can't say who it is, but she said that they're from New York. However, she never actually revealed the name. So there you go, there was the Roscoe's recap for RuPaul's Drag Race Season 17, Episode 10. Would you like to see an all-villains version of All Stars? And if so, who would be on the cast? Let me know in the comments. And I'd just like to give a special shout out to two of my most recent Patreon members who joined in the You're a Winner Baby tier, Jetsam and Cool Girl Nan. Jetsam and Cool Girl Nan, you are both winners, baby. If you'd like to get early access to my videos as well as have your comments featured in my Have Your Say videos and access to the exclusive Patreon chat, please check out my Patreon because it just costs a few dollars a month. It really helps support my channel and it really does make a huge difference to me being able to make these videos. So please check it out and I'll put a link in the description. And I'd just like to say thank you so much to all of my existing Patreon members. Your support really does blow me away every single time. I love the community I've built on Patreon and I love talking to you all on Patreon. So thank you so much for your continued support. It really does mean more than you know. Please make sure you like and comment on my videos because it really helps boost the video in the algorithm and promote it to more people. And please make sure you hit the subscribe button if you liked this video and you want to see more of them. Thank you for watching and I hope you'll join me again in a future video. Thank you, bye!